hope you enjoyed your dinner. Whether you ate it here or you ate it somewhere else, I hope you enjoyed your meal. I really did. And it's kind of a question. Did you enjoy your meal? Did you enjoy your dinner tonight? That's the question. And when I ask that question, I'm not asking, did you enjoy the company that you were with? Like you're with all your friends. You're like, yeah, we were laughing. It was great. No, I'm not asking. And I'm not asking if you enjoyed like you were hungry and now you're full and you're glad you're not hungry anymore. I mean, that's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. But here's what I'm asking. About the last meal you ate before this talk. Did you enjoy the taste of the food? Did you enjoy the texture as it rolled around in your tongue? I mean, did you really taste the food? Or were you so busy shoveling it in and talking that you didn't notice? Did you enjoy it? Was there something in that food that was just, did you stop for a moment and say, man, I am lucky to be alive and eating this food at this moment, man? Maybe you didn't, and that's okay. But if you did, good for you. Good for you. And when I say good for you, I mean that I'm not being flip. I mean good for you. See, like I'm a humanist, and so for me, my definition of goodness is anything that contributes to the happiness of sentient beings, right? Anything that makes conscious beings happier is good to me. And so anything that you do that promotes kind of deep, lasting enjoyment of the wonders of life, I'll say that's good, okay? And really, when it comes to any given meal you might eat in your life, I mean, there's wonder in every bite, if you really think about it, isn't there? I mean, just think about a bite of food. Think about a bite of the dinner you had tonight. I mean, just think about, like, the growing of the food itself. I mean, just, like, if you ate a potato or a lettuce or something like that, just think about, like, the amazing wonder of just a seed getting planted in the ground and germinating and growing. I mean, and then breaking through the surface. And then you go like, how does it keep going? Where does it get the energy to grow? And you go like, photosynthesis. And I mean, maybe it's been a long time since you were in high school biology, but photosynthesis, I didn't even understand it then. But it's an amazing thing, isn't it? Sunlight transformed into growth. And that's before, and of course the thing won't grow unless there's water. And just think about like the wonder of water being evaporated and then up in the clouds and then like blowing over and then precipitating down. I mean, water itself is just an amazing thing. The process of delivering water. So you got this plant growing. And then after it grows, it gets harvested. I mean, we don't even stop with the growth. Then it gets harvested and like people come and think about all the communication, all the coordination that has to happen for a bunch of people to go out into a field and harvest it. And then the machines that they're using, the tractors. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys are mechanics. Do any of you know how to fix things, cars? Anybody? You know a little bit. I mean, just the wonder of the internal combustion engine. I mean, the fact that the things work. I mean, for most of us, I mean, like we know how to turn it on and make it go, but the fact that it works, and then before you get, then you'd have to go back to the gasoline in it, and the incredible process by which plant matter gets turned into fossil fuel and then gets refined into gasoline. I mean, it's just incredible. The machines that harvest it and the people that do it, the organization, the infrastructure, and then after it's harvested, it gets transported over roads and highways, which if you've ever blacktopped your own, has anyone ever blacktopped your own driveway? Right? It's like takes you like 2 days. And then just think about the infrastructure of like one road. How many man hours, how many woman hours of work go into that? And the bridges and all that stuff. It's just, it boggles the mind. And then it gets to the kitchen. And the skill and the knowledge that it takes to prepare food to know how to cook it and where to put it and how to put those things together. And of course, if you were like me, if there are any Italians here, you know that it's not just knowledge and skill that goes into cooking. It's love. Right? My grandmother always used to say, you can tell a meal that's been made with love. And I know that that's not scientifically verifiable. But the fact of the matter is if you've ever had a meal cooked for you by somebody who really was passionate about cooking, you know the difference. So then it gets on the table in front of you tonight. And you had eyes that saw it. You could see the food, most of you. In order to cut it, in order to take your fork down there, you had to see it. And the eyes that you saw it with, right? They are wonders. 10 million years of evolution. That you can see? That you can see something, that the photons hit your eyes and you can interpret that into data. And then you took the fork and you went down there with your hand and you cut it. And you look at your hand. I mean, the hand itself is just a wonder. Like, I don't know. Do you really think about moving your hand? I don't know how I move my hand. I don't consciously know the signals that I'm sending that go back and forth, but it moves. It's a wonder. You bring it to your mouth, and you could taste it, and you could smell it. Again, through senses evolved over so many generations, so many things, that it's a mind blower just to think about it. And all that data and all that electrical impulses go to your brain, and oh my God, if there was one, we would. What a wonder is your brain. To be able to take all that sensory data and collate it and interpret it and appreciate it. I guess what I'm saying is, when you think about all that stuff, and that was just one bite. My cousin, when I was a kid growing up, I had an older cousin, and he was a different kind of wonder, my cousin Ray. My cousin Ray was about 10 years older than me, and from the time I was a little kid, he was the cousin you just idolized. He was like this. You talk about like being alive, your senses being alive. You talk about appreciating your food. Ray appreciated everything. I mean, he did, have you ever met somebody who just does everything in a big way? Like when they laugh, they're like, and when you say like, hey, let's play touch football, and they show up with cleats. And when you say like, hey, want to do a book club? And they're like, sure, let's start with Infinite Jest. It's a real burner, and like it's 8,000 pages long and nobody can understand it. Like Ray was just whatever he did big. And I was that little cousin, and for some reason he just decided to take me along to stuff. He was a youth leader. He worked with kids. And so whenever he was taking the kids to the beach, he would take me along. Whenever he was taking the kids to the movies, he would take me along. And I just loved being with him. He just made me feel so special. I don't know if you've ever had somebody in your life like that, somebody who you could just count on to make you feel special. If you haven't, I hope you get one here, because it's a really good thing to be with somebody like that. I just love this guy. I was in his wedding when he got married. I was the youngest groomsman, and I just remember, putting on the tuxedo and just being so proud, like that I was in his wedding, because there were a lot of people that wanted to be in his wedding. He was the most popular guy at his college. He had a kid, went on, he did a lot of good stuff. He became a Baptist minister, and he was a good Baptist minister. Till he was about 35 years old. When he was 35 years old, I got a call from my dad that said Ray had a stroke. Out of nowhere, he had this stroke, and he was in the hospital, and I needed to get over there. So I got in the car, and I drove over to the hospital. And when I got there, I didn't know what to expect, but when I went into the room, my aunt was there, Ray's mom, and my dad was there, and Ray was there, hooked up to all these machines. And they told me that he was brain dead. Like they had him on the machines, but he was brain dead. And they were trying to talk to his mom about what to do, because he had good organs. He was a young guy, and he was in reasonable shape. And they needed his organs. They wanted his organs. And it made sense for him to give his organs, but they couldn't do it until she turned off the machine. And this was a seriously religious woman. And my dad's a serious Baptist minister. And there they were, trying to figure out what to do. Eventually, my dad had to go, and so it's just me and my aunt. I don't know if you've ever been in the room with somebody who's dying, if you've ever been the bedside person. I spent most of my life working in inner city neighborhoods, so I've been that guy quite a bit. But this was the first time for me. And I remember sitting there looking at Ray. And I just loved this guy so much. And as I'm looking at him lying there in that bed, I desperately wanted to believe that he was going to wake up, that he was going to be okay. And I knew, medically speaking, it wasn't going to happen, but I wanted it so bad. And I remember thinking, even if he wasn't going to wake up here, I just desperately wanted to believe that he would wake up somewhere and he would get to eat another meal and enjoy some more wonder, because he loved eating and he loved wonder. I just so badly wanted that to be true. And you say, well, that's because you were religious. It's because I love my cousin. You don't have to be religious to hope for heaven. All you have to do is sit at the bedside of somebody who's dying that you love very much, and you just desperately want to believe you'll get to see them again. You get to talk to them again. Something will happen. You say, what are you talking about? That rationally, that makes no sense. Of course it makes no sense rationally. I'm not saying it's rational. I'm not saying it's true. It's not rational to believe that there is a heaven, but it's sure as hell rational to wish there was. And if you don't understand the religious motivations of people, if you don't understand why people so desperately want to believe in a God that fixes everything in the end, or why they so desperately want to believe that when their loved one dies, that they'll go to heaven and that they'll live happily ever after, if you don't understand that, then you're not paying attention. Then your scientific and analytical skills are really weak, because there are very good rational reasons for that desire. It's natural. Robert Ingersoll is my kind of hero in this humanist movement. And Robert Ingersoll was, in the late 19th century, he was the most widely, heard orator in all of America. As a matter of fact, at the time of Ingersoll's death, no single person in all of human history had ever been listened to by more live audience members than Ingersoll. And he put it this way. Ingersoll said, the idea of immortality, that like a sea has ebbed and flowed in the human heart with its countless waves of hope and fear, was not born of any creed, nor of any religion. It was born of human affection. And it will continue to ebb and flow beneath the mists and clouds of doubt and darkness, for as long as love kisses the lips of death. The idea of immortality is the rainbow, hope, shining on the tears of grief. See, what Ingersoll was saying was, it isn't the religion that invented the idea of eternal life. It was the desire for eternal life that invented religion. That's why people came up with it in the first place. They were trying to make sense of death, especially the death of the ones that they love, because frankly, you don't trouble a lot over the death of people you can't stand. My experience in the secular community is this, that most secular humanists I know have just enough reason to make them miserable. They're reasonable people. They can tell you exactly why it makes no sense to believe in a supernatural God. They can tell you exactly why this life is the only one they have. They can tell you all the good reasons why they don't believe in eternal life. But they can't tell you what to do about it. Ingersoll, he didn't stop there. Ingersoll went on. And this was the second thing he said. And yet he said, there's one thing of which I am certain, and that is that if we could live forever here, we would care nothing for one another. The fact that we must die, the fact that the feast must end, brings our souls together and treads the weeds out from the paths between our hearts. See, Ingersoll said, yeah, of course, when somebody we love goes, we wish that there was something else. We wish we'd see them again. But he said, the fact is that if we all live forever, no moment would have any value. Time wouldn't be precious at all. Ingersoll speculated widely that if there was eternal life, there would be no love at all in the universe. That love was the child of death. And that the fact that we are going to die, that we're all going to die, is what makes it so imperative that we connect with each other. It's what we all have in common. Not that we have in common with all the people that lived and died millions of years ago. It's what we have in common with each other, because we're in this moment right now. Everyone in this room, we're in this moment right now. We're together, but it's not going to last. And we rationalists know that. The question is, do we know what to do with it? A friend of mine in the ghetto, back where I used to work, one day she told me about walking home. She was walking home from the bus stop, and there was a drive-by shooting in the neighborhood. A bunch of guys rolled out of a car, and they were shooting up the neighborhood, and people were running everywhere. And this kid she knew, this 16-year-old kid, she didn't really know him. She just knew, she'd seen him on the street. But this kid caught a bullet. And he fell in the street, and he was laying there, dying. And she didn't know him. So she waited until somebody else would go to him. I mean, they called 911, and they're waiting for the ambulance, but the kid's bleeding out there right on the street, and he's crying, and he's screaming. He said, I'm dying. And she said nobody would go to him. Nobody knew what to do. And so I said, what'd you do? And she said, I went to him. And I picked him up, and I held him. I said, what did you say? I mean, what do you say to a 16-year-old kid who's bleeding out on the street? What do you say? It's going to be all right? It's not going to be all right. I said, what do you say? And she said, I held him, and I hugged him, and I said to him, I'm here with you. She said it over and over again. She said, I'm here with you. I'm here with you, and I love you. I love you. I said, how could you say that you loved him? You don't even know him. She said, Bart, you don't understand. As I held him there and looked at him, I did love him. He's a kid. He's a person. He's a human being, and he's dying. And I know. She said, I felt I was desperate for him. And she said, I'm here, and I care, and I love you. I thought about that. I think about that a lot. You say, what am I doing at USC? They're not all bleeding out there, you know, but they're all going to die. And so are we. So what do you do? What do you do when you're holding somebody in your arms who's going to die? You know what you do? You put your arms around them, and you say, I'm here, and I care, and I love you. Death clears it all away. In the cognizance of death, you forget all the different, I'm here, and I care, and I love you. At USC, we're building this community. And what I'm trying to teach the kids is that on the campus, there are all sorts of young people that feel alone. There are all sorts of young people whose parents are dying of cancer, or who were sexually assaulted at a frat party last month, or just don't fit in as well as they'd like to, or who know they're going to die. And I said, our job is to form a community of people that care about each other, that know each other, that are really good friends with each other, that are comfortable with each other, so comfortable that we can go to one of those kids and say, listen, if you don't have any other friends, you should come hang with my friends. You should come to our group. And they say, oh, I can't go to your group. I don't believe in God. And goes, neither do any of the rest of us. We don't believe in God, but we really believe in loving each other. We really believe in loving each other because it's rational. See, remember when I said most humanists have just enough reason to make themselves miserable? if they were really reasonable, they would know that if there is no life after death, then this is all we've got. And if this is all we've got, then there's only one thing that makes any sense, and that is to enjoy it as much as possible. If this life is all you have, the only thing that makes sense is to enjoy it as much as you can, is to be as happy as possible. And then they would ask the scientific, rational question, what makes people happy? So making money makes people happy. You know what? I've actually got the data on that one. And to a certain point, money will make you happier. But then at a certain point, it levels out. And after a while, if you make more money, guess what? Typically, statistically speaking, people tend to experience lesser level of happiness. Making the most money isn't the most richest people aren't the happiest people. You live in the Silicon Valley. Who am I telling? You say, well, yeah, then you should just have sex. Sex is awesome. You should have as much sex as a matter of fact, if a little sex is good, you should have a lot of sex with as many possible people as you can. Oddly enough, the statistics on that one are not promising either. As a matter of fact, the more promiscuous people become, the more people they have sex with, especially the more sex that they have with people that they're not particularly connected with, a lot of times what happens is that they register some significant unhappiness. You say, drugs. Drugs! I love drugs. Has anyone here ever used drugs? Wasn't it great? Okay, you've used the wrong drugs. Statistically speaking, guess what? Odd thing. People that use the most drugs do not register the highest levels of happiness. As a matter of fact, you get into massive drug use and you register all kinds of pathologies. You know who does register consistently the highest level of happiness? The people that have the most significant loving relationships and the people that feel that they're using their lives to make the world better for other people. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you should do this because God tells you should do this. I'm not telling you should do this because some religious dogma. I'm just telling you, I'm just a scientific dude, and I'm just saying, look, if this life is the only thing you have, you should make the most of it, and the way to make the most of it is to love people and fight for justice. Ingersoll said it better than me. Ingersoll said, the only goodness in life is to be happy. The time to be happy is now. And the way to be happy is to make other people happy. And so we're building a group, I tell them at USC, that's committed to making people happy. I really hope you enjoyed your dinner. Your last meal. But more than that, I really hope you enjoy your next meal. You have this moment. You have this life. You're rational people. Make the most of it. Make the most of it.